this computer. Here we go. Hey, I'm glad to have you here. Our special guest today is going to be introducing himself. Can you introduce yourself? Can you tell us how you got into Demolition Derby?
Yes, Josh Decker. I live up in a little town called Whitney Point, New York, and really, like most people, I fell in love with Demolition Derby when I was a kid at my county fair. I went to my local county fair. My first one was when I was 4 years old, my dad said. And I've been absolutely addicted to the sport since that age. And I've always went and watched my county fairs. And then since then it's grown where now I go national. I've gone all over the country smashing cars.
This is a separate one. I was trying to look into this stuff. Am I right? I could be way off. Is the biggest one is it Kansas? Is that where one of the biggest Demolition Derbies is, or?
That would be, yes. In Demolition Derby, it evolves. You know, the biggest of the country changes all the time. But right now, Blizzard Bash, they call it, would be one of the biggest shows. It's a week-long Demolition Derby. There's millions of dollars in cars being smashed. It's a team format, and it's in a giant indoor arena. And if you guys ever are bored, go to YouTube and look up Blizzard Bash Demolition Derby. It'll blow your mind. But there are cars with $50,000 in them smashing, and They have to all weekend, sometimes having to run as many as 4 times in a row to get to that. I believe it's $50,000 a man in their pocket. So good money to be paid too.
Amazing. Awesome. Thank you. Let's see. So my second question here. We've talked in our class about what impulse is and how lengthening the time of impact. We were just talking about airbags in my class. Lengthening the time of impact makes it so the driver is under less force. What type of safety features, if any, help reduce the force of impact for Demolition Derby drivers?
Great question, actually, because years ago when I started, I used to smash in a T-shirt and shorts, right, in my shoes. And that has changed. That is almost, you'd be nuts to do that now. Now, at places like Blizzard Bash, they're wearing full fire gear as far as their clothing. They have neck braces is the biggest thing. My neck, I sleep horrible at night still to this day because of all the impacts I've taken from my neck. So that's a big thing, and a good helmet is big. And now the guys are even to the point where they wear pads on their arms, elbows, knees, and legs because they're getting jostled so much inside that car, and they're actually hitting parts of the car.
I was trying to just be more informed about this, and I saw that at least in some tournaments, you're not allowed to hit driver's side door, at least on purpose. Is that standard?
That is a standard across since the sport was invented in 1958. That was actually one of the very first rules. You do not touch a driver's door, and it's actually more about etiquette. There are times everyone gets hit in the driver door. You end a derby, your door is always beat up. It is a problem when someone does it on purpose. If someone is looking at you and does it, that's different than being hit into view. So everyone gets hit in the door, but driver's doors, guys get pretty upset about that because, you know, we all have to go to work tomorrow. Nobody wants to get hurt. It's just a hobby.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you. Let's see. My third question here. We've been talking about 2 types of collisions in our class. One where the objects stick together and the other where they're blown apart afterwards. When you are colliding with another car intentionally, are you going into an impact with an idea of whether or not the car is going to bounce off the other car, or if the 2 of you are going to be moving together, stuck together? And if you have that idea, how are you making such prediction before you collide?
Great question. I could talk about this for years, actually. This is the art of Demolition Derby right here. The best drivers out there are able to look at an action that's going to happen. Imagine 20 cars are out there. You could hit anything you want. They're picking their shots on what will do the most amount of damage to the opposite car, but the least amount of damage to you. Now, the worst thing to hit in Demolition Derby is the wall. The wall never gives 1 inch. Nothing moves on a wall. When you hit a wall, you are bending your rails. And when you bend a frame rail, you're pretty much, that's the beginning of the end for you. So the best drivers are making split decisions on making it a shot that is going to punish the other guy, but keep their rail straight. Now, the biggest point of doing this, and again, I could talk about this for years, but you want to be hitting with the center of your bumper. You never want to hit with one corner because at that point, one rail is taking all the impact. So we focus on the best drivers, run pointy bumpers that come to a point, and they're taking that point and pinpointing where they put them. Now, when I'm hitting somebody, I'm trying to hit one rail. I want to hit you in the corner, buckle those rails right in. I love when you're against the wall because you're not going to move at all. I have the momentum. I'm going to take right through your frame rails, bend all your frame rails, and that impact will go right through the back of that wall, and you're going to be the one that's punished. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of that, there's a lot of ins and outs of derbying. You actually have to know makes and models of cars. You know, when you really get into it, I don't want to hit this make because it's stronger because of this or that. But really, yeah, you're focusing on using two of your rails to hurt one rail of theirs or a tire, or, you know, you're picking and choosing your shots. But one way to look at it is if you had a straw, like a McDonald's straw, let's even say a pen. This pen is long, but if we tried to bend it, okay, let's imagine we cut this in half and you only had half of it, and you tried to bend the half. What would bend easier, the long one or the half of one? The long one bends way easier. So in Demolition Derby, a lot of times we also even try to shorten our cars. We call it shortening our frame rails. We do it in the fronts and the back. The more you can shorten, the shorter your straw is, the harder you are to bend.
That's really cool.
Some ideas that we do there.
No, that's great. That's very interesting. Do you find that when you are colliding with others, is it very common at all for you to actually end up lodged in a way that you can't pull yourself out?
Yes. Yeah, that's not good. We call that getting hung. Okay. And there's lots of different things that usually it's not two hard cars. Usually it's one car is strong and one car is soft, and you punish it so far that you actually get up and inside it, and you get caught inside there. That is not good. In our world, that is not good, because then you can't get apart to do any damage. You have to start going together and trying to make hits to work yourself apart. That becomes a whole nother game you're stuck into when you're hung with somebody.
Right.
But the good focus is you really want to be making shots that you don't get hung in somebody. And really, it depends on the tracks you are, but there's some places that are very aggressive where really your heart gets pounding because there's 60 guys can blast you from any direction. So you want to make shots that you are doing glancing, where you're actually hitting this car that you veer off and keep your momentum in a different direction and kind of push that car in a direction or do a little bit of damage. But you know you're not doing 100% damage, but you're trying to do something else, which is keep your momentum and not get locked inside it. Because the worst is when you get locked inside a car and you can hear a car from the other wall just coming 600 horsepower and he's coming for you. I mean, that is intense.
Yeah. When I was trying to think about this particular lesson, this interview, before I contacted you, I was trying to think what profession or career is going to often be dealing with collisions in a very intentional way.
Yeah.
And I thought at first, I was wondering, like, well, should I look for a state trooper that does the pivots where they're trying to do a pivot maneuver and really get somebody? And I thought that, well, that might be, to find a state trooper that's done that more than a few times, I didn't think that was going to be that likely. That they have to learn it, but they're probably not doing it all the time. Whereas that's like bread and
I've done 1,000.
yeah,
At least 1,000
all the time.
I actually like doing those because a couple of reasons, but I like to pit maneuver you to the wall. Okay, so you're going, I'm going to hit you, so you end up against the wall. I'm going to back up, and I'm going to come at you again. But my second hit, again, it's that wall, so I'm going to do more punishment than if you were in that center of that track.
Awesome. Excellent. I'll go into my fourth question here. These are great. What is one thing that you wished more people understood about demolition derby driving or demolition derbies in general? And this one doesn't have to be physics or science.
Yeah, I can talk about this forever also. The thing about demolition derby is forever, it was thought of as low-class guys, just a bunch of backyard mechanics just taking junk, and that's not what we are. The sport of demolition derby is actually, there's lawyers, doctors, there's guys I know that are millionaires that are smashing cars for fun, and there's great people, community, family people with great families. Their families do this together. They travel the country together. Sometimes what people think of a certain sport is not really what we are. We're actually a great group of people and great family oriented. And if you like cars, I don't know what age group that you're teaching, but if you guys are getting into the age group where you can start smashing cars, it's fun. It's fun. You can get in at any level where you're just taking a car. You take your mom's car that's all beat up. They're going to send it to the junkyard, and 2 days later you're smashing it, and it's fun. You do it with your friends and you paint it, and you go to the track together, and you create memories. Maybe you do it with your dad. You know, that my dad and I never did derbying together. That's one thing I wish I did. So I hope some of you guys out there get with mom, dad, make it more family, but get into demolition derby.
That's awesome. Thank you. My students are all high school seniors, so they're all 17, 18. So they're all
smashing cars already. I smashed 30 cars by the time I was a senior.
Wow. I'll have to find out where the closest one is to Kennett Square, Pennsylvania, so I can tell them where they need to go.
Kennett Square, Pennsylvania. Whereabouts is that actually? You're down by Pittsburgh?
Southeastern Pennsylvania. So between it's near the Delaware border.
Oh man, I could give you a list of derbies down that way. Get into Jersey. There's some hard hitting in Jersey. You go to Harrisburg, Allentown, any of those areas. A lot of good derbies down in that area.
Perfect. I'll push that forward to them. Great. My final question here for you. Can you think of any particular instance in a demolition derby where your knowledge of physics gave you an edge over another driver?
Oh, 1000%. It's happening right now to this day. Let me just real quick, if I could go for a 2-minute rant here.
Go for it.
When demolition derby started, you just took your car and whatever parts that came on it, you smashed it with it. It was just for fun. That has completely evolved. Guys change every single nut, bolt, everything. Well, I'm going to go farther with you. Now what we've done is they have wrapped their motors in something that we call a cradle. It is just imagine a block of steel. It's much more intricate than that, but imagine a block of steel, and they're going to put this block of steel in their car, and with a porta power, they're going to push it in with a porta power. And what it's going to do, actually, it's going to push down on those rails I was talking about earlier. Now, as you guys probably know, steel flexes. When you hit steel, you can actually watch a wave go through it. Well, what we do is we pressurize these systems, we pressurize our rails, and it will take the flex out. So when I go to hit a car that has flex, I'm much harder, much stronger, right? So we do this with these braces. We pressurize them in there with up to 10, 20-ton porta powers. It's very amazing to watch a guy do it, and it makes these cars so much stronger. Not only that, but we change angles. Now, you don't know this either, but when you look at a car on the side of a car, the frame rails are not perfectly level. They're actually pointed upwards, and that has to do a whole bunch with crush points and how they're manufactured. So if you get in an accident, they're going to bend a certain way. Every car has specific spots it's going to bend, and that car will bend in the same spot every single time. That is made from the factory. We get rid of those, and we change the angles, and we bring our angles to our frame rails are perfectly straight. And this is something we call tilting. And when you tilt a car, now every hit you're making it where that pressure is going straight in. You have to push that pressure straight through the frame rails instead of like this. Because of course, if it's got an angle on it and you're pushing upward, you're going to bend your car. And as you guys have watched demolition derbies, you always see the fronts way up in the air. That's not what you want. You want to keep that nose as straight as you can, as long as you can. So yeah, I know these things. Now, around here in the New York area, very few drivers know about it. So it's, is it an advantage? To me, it's a huge advantage knowing about pressures and angles.
That's awesome. So you have not only the experience, because you've been doing this, how many years have you been doing this?
22 years.
So you've been doing this 22 years.
Over 200 cars. Wow.
So you got tons of experience, but you have the knowledge that goes behind the experience to make it actually be able to apply what you have there. Like I was just telling my students that we just did a couple examples with like shooting pool billiards. I have all the physics knowledge of how that works as far as shooting pool with momentum, but I don't have the experience. I haven't had to put in the hours to be like, okay, I know the science of it, I know the physics, and I can apply it. But what you're saying is like you have both. You understand the knowledge behind it, and you've done 200 cars worth of smashing to be able to actually put them together. That's awesome. When's your next derby?
Oh boy, I don't actually personally have one until April, but I actually own a pay-per-view company, and we go all over the country live streaming demolition derbies, and you guys can watch it on YouTube. If you look up Track Shot TV or Track Shot Live on YouTube, it will show demolition derbies that we've done from all over the country, and we're going to kick off in March. We have about 40 of those that we'll do this year from all over the country. So if you're even digging what I'm saying a little bit, just watch it. Just go on YouTube, like as soon as you get out of school, and look up Track Shot Live, and you can watch derbies from Canada and Ohio. And real quick, as all the things that we've discussed, I've learned a lot of this by traveling all over the country, because a guy in Canada builds a lot different than a guy in Florida or a guy in Arizona. And I've got to learn all these different things, which have really helped me make my derby cars the best, but that's what you got to do. You got to sometimes learn and learn and learn, because and put it all together, what you learn, to make something super strong like derby cars.
That's awesome. tiny bonus follow-up. I'm just curious here, since you have your own production company, basically, that you're working
Yes.
with this.
Oh, yes.
Have you, is the market ripe, or maybe I missed it and it's already happened, is the market ripe for there to be like some TV reality series following Derby or anything like that? Because
Well, that's exactly my focus of life. There have been some reality shows. You can watch one called Kings of Crash. That was probably the biggest. It was done in maybe 2010, and that followed a group of friends of mine in Utah, which Utah is like virtually the mecca of demolition derby. They're paying derbies where guys are winning 50, 60,000 bucks on a random Wednesday. I know
wow,
guys that make a living demolition derbying in Utah, like
wow.
100 a year smashing cars. But yes, my production group goes all over the place showing all different kind of derbies and stuff. And yeah, absolutely. It's that's the thing that I love, is trying to get demolition derby bigger, because we all know about NASCAR and monster trucks, but what is the next sport that's going to be huge? It's going to be demolition derby. And the group that I've been filming with, we've been filming just for a few years, but we did Las Vegas. We had over 250,000 people tune in to watch that. And that's getting pretty big. I feel within the next few years, we'll have 1 million people per show watching demolition derby, which at that point, I mean, that's what cable television's getting. So we're not that far from demolition derby being on cable television. And then hopefully I can parlay that into my own reality show. But, we're all dreaming of that.
That's awesome. Very, very cool. Thank you. Thank you for sharing all this with us. That's
Absolutely. And I wish I could show you guys my outside, because I can turn this around quick. I have maybe 50 demolition derby cars. I don't know if you guys can see out in my yard at all.
yeah.
But I have probably about 50 of them out there in the snow.
Wow.
And we're going to smash all of them. One of those. And again, as you can see, all the cars that I smash are old stuff from the 1960s and the 1970s. Before any of you were born are these cars sitting in my yard.
That is awesome. This has been a treat. Thank you. Thanks so much for sharing this with us.
Appreciate it.
Go ahead and hit the stop recording button.